I saw a lot of people tweeting out like supportive things about Tucker Carlson for this clip. I don't even know how recent it is. This clip feels kind of old to me. Because I don't, like, unless Tucker was recently on Ben Shapiro's show. And I think a lot of people are taking this stance of like, oh, the things Tucker Carlson is saying here are actually kind of like cool and based. And my opinion is no, they aren't. uh, there's like maybe some subtle things in that like he's aware of a real problem, but all of his solutions here are just not good. Classic fascism, see a real problem, diagnose a covered solution. Yeah, but it was still weird to me that like you're right that that's typical fascism, but there were so many people I saw that were kind of like praising what Tucker was saying here. Or at least like I wouldn't say so many, but enough people that made me go, "Come on now. Come on now." So, let's get into what the problem is.
If you wake up one morning and you find yourself in a society where...
Also apologize, I know, like Tucker Carlson's voice always should come with a trigger warning, so I apologize. Here's Tucker Carlson's voice.
23-year-olds with 4-year college degrees and like initiative who aren't smoking weed every day, if they can't make enough to buy a car, much less a home, much less get married, much less have children.
I should just pause right there. I mean, immediately framing that somehow, like, if you're smoking weed, you have no initiative. Like, I will agree, there are some people who smoke weed who have no initiative. But guess what? So many people smoke weed that I'm guessing that at least a handful of them, okay, have some initiative. And so, I'm sorry, Tucker Carlson, but even on this, you're wrong, okay?
Then why should you be surprised when half of them say they prefer socialism?
Well,
you should not be surprised.
I agree to a certain extent. I think that the question is when the pedal hits the metal. Like you talk in the book about technology and how it's shifting and taking away jobs from folks.
Yes.
And you make specific reference to truck driving and the fact that there are going to be these automated cars on the roads. So would you, Tucker Carlson, be in favor of restrictions on the ability of trucking companies to use this sort of technology specifically to, sort of artificially maintain the number of jobs that are available in the trucking industry?
Are you joking?
I think, like, why a lot of people like this clip was for this moment, for Tucker to just stare in Ben Shapiro's face with disgust and be like, "Are you joking?" But he's gonna go on with his solution to this problem. I mean, like, I don't even like the idea. Like, there's something about, I think he's even misdiagnosing the sort of like causal relationship here, because it's like I don't think that a lot of people, I think it's like half and half, or like some sort of balancing thing rather than like a lot of people that he's putting out here in terms of like, you're in your 20s, you can't afford a house, you can't afford a car, that therefore you go to I support socialism. But, like, I don't think a lot of people down that road are thinking in terms of supporting socialism in the same way that I support socialism, right? Like, they're probably supporting a kind of, like, Bernie-style social democratic kind of, like, idea, right? And, like, that's fine, not to knock that. It's just, like, I don't even think people have thought about it that much in terms of like an anti-capitalist sense, right? I think most of the people in that situation just like on the base surface feel like there's an unfairness and an injustice, but that it's not necessarily an immediate critique to capitalism, right? Which I think is where leftist discourse should come in there and sort of fill the spaces, right? Because like the intuition of unfairness is true and real. It's just like everybody on the street doesn't necessarily know what the cause of that unfairness is, right? You can get people that will just say, oh, it's the government getting in capitalists' way, or, other ways to sort of frame this that aren't like immediately to, oh, the problem is capital. And therefore, in order to fix this, we need to, get rid of capital, or at the very least regulate it in some capacity, right? Which is interesting. He's going to offer some aspect of regulation. It's just going to be super weird and not good regulation.
In a second. in a second. In other words, if I were president, when I say to DOT, to Department of Transportation, we're not letting driverless trucks on the road, period. Why? Really simple. Driving for a living is the single most common job for high school educated men in this country, in all 50 states. By the way, that's the same group whose wages have gone down by 11% over the past 30 years. The social cost of eliminating their jobs in a 10-year span, 5-year span, 30-year span is so high that it's not sustainable.
So I think this answer is like partly true. It's partly true if you do nothing about it. Which is like part of the thing that frustrates me here, because like Tucker's going to get into it, but like if you were to do something about that though, to have it such that, you know, these kind of shocks to the economy when jobs become obsolete, that there is some, I mean, you know, in my socialist utopia, it wouldn't even get to that stage anyways, but like even in our sort of like regulated capitalist system, to find some way to handle that kind of job loss without like devastating these people's lives is still somewhat possible. It's just not incentivized by the current system we have, right? Which is why it's a problem. But then it's like, then shouldn't your critique be against capitalism for allowing that to happen, for the incentives to be in such a way that you could lose all those jobs and then those people are devastated? Like, isn't that a problem with the system itself? But of course, like, that's, like, watch where he takes this.
So the greater good is protecting your citizens from, look, capitalism is the best economic system I can think of, I think that anyone's ever thought of. But that doesn't mean that it's a religion and everything about it is good.
No, but
there's no Nicene Creed of capitalism.
So, like, I mean, he's like, there's this a really thin sort of critique of capitalism here, being that it's not a religion. But it's like, for him to say that capitalism can take away tens of millions of jobs just by a simple technological innovation somehow still makes it the best system ever conceived is the most mind-numbing thing that he could say here. You know, clearly this system did not actually enable a good society. In fact, it incentivizes its destruction by making technology such that it could ruin people's lives. I mean, I was going to get to that as well, Vienna, which is like, they have clearly both bought into this idea of self-driving cars. And like, let's be clear. I am not a techno-pessimist to the point of saying self-driving cars will never happen or that technology is somewhat impossible. I just lean towards it now being highly impractical and still far away. You know, for them to be like, for him and Ben to be worried about this now in this context is kind of silly. You know. Although, like, we understand the phenomena. I think, like, stripped of its context and how they're talking about this, it is true that technological advances can sort of, like, remove people's jobs. Like, that does happen. God, I used to be someone who was way more... I feel like I used to read a lot more techno-optimist literature. I am a lot more skeptical of that literature today than I was, like, 10, 15 years ago when I used to read this stuff. But, like, the thing that I'm starting to realize when you, like, look at how self-driving cars function, it just seems like I don't know. I don't know how they overcome some of the hills in terms of, like, managing objects that just jump out in front of the car. You know what I mean? And, like, those quick second decision-making kind of things. That seems like so... I mean, like, that's also where you get to the limitations of human cognition either, because it's not even clear that humans can handle that shit, you know? But then it's like, I almost feel like the only way self-driving cars would work is you need a complete overhaul of our transportation system such that everyone becomes self-driving all at once and all the cars are, like, working together in some sort of, like, super network. But, like, if we're going to do that kind of large scale infrastructure project, there's so many other things I would do instead, like rail or you know, just better, greener technology, you know. And maybe I'm wrong, you know. Maybe I am not a person working on the technology, so maybe they know things that I don't. Clearly, they know things that I don't. But I do feel like part of it was sold as a marketing project by people like Elon Musk, way ahead of its practical viability.
That I have to buy into what I care about is living in a country where, you know, decent people can live happy lives, actually. And so, no, I would say immediately, no, are you joking? And I maybe would make up some pretext for public consumption, like, oh, they're dangerous. The technology is not quite finessed. No. But the truth would be, I don't want to put 10 million men out of work because you're going to have 10 million dead families, and the cascading effect from that will wreck your country.
So
I love like that his way of doing this as a government is to just lie to people. It's like, I can't like, you know, I can't just fix, I was going to say fix capitalism, but I mean, I can't just get rid of capitalism, which is my fix to capitalism. We can't just do that. No, instead, I have to lie to the people and be like, ooh, the technology is just so complicated and it's deadly and it's killing people, and like scare them into saving their jobs. Which, like, how would that even work? Like, in the context of our world, how would that work? Like, how would you, I don't know, without doing any regulations, simply with your fear-mongering campaign, convince capitalists not to invent a technology where they could lay off a bunch of people? It just doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever.